7:44, welcome back here. So this is a tough conversation to have. I just want to preface it by saying that. But have you ever thought about what happens to debt, your debt, a family member's debt, after someone dies? According to Credit.com, 73% of people had outstanding debt after passing away. We actually talked about that on our show a couple weeks ago. Those people in this study carried an average total balance of nearly $62,000 in debt, including mortgage debt. So joining us this morning to have this tough conversation, but necessary conversation, Bridget Burgess, a certified financial planner and client advisor at Laird Norton Wealth Management. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So $62,000 is a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money. So what do we need to know now to prepare?
Well, it's true, $62,000 is a big number,
Yeah.
and debt's a serious issue. But when you take a look at what that $62,000 consists of, a big portion of that is the mortgage. And you know, a house is the asset that backs the mortgage. So if you take the mortgage out of that number comes down closer to around $10,000, which is more manageable. That $10,000 is usually credit cards, auto loan, personal loans, can be student loans. So it's a little more manageable than the 62.
So I know we were sort of chit-chatting during the break. I know this is a tough conversation. We mentioned that, and I feel like it's a conversation that no one ever wants to have. So I'm glad that we're talking about this. But what should you have in order when it comes to your estate and your will? What types of things do we need to think about here?
It's a really tough situation when someone you love dies. It's overwhelming, and then to have to deal with the administration of the estate. On top of that, it's important to have things in order. So first, get a hold of an attorney and get a will, get powers of attorney, get a living will in place, get an estate plan in place if you need to, and then along with those kind of formal documents, know how much debt you have, know how much you have in assets, know if you've co-signed on any loans. And getting all of that organized is confusing in itself. So using a financial planner to find out, do you have enough in assets to cover your debts? You know, understanding and putting a plan together to make sure that happens is important.
So when we talk about that debt, when someone you love dies or after you pass away and you have debt, where does it go? Who's responsible for that debt?
When someone dies, what they owe and what they own is known as their estate. So kind of the first order that occurs is assets are used to cover the debts in an estate. So then the million-dollar question becomes, what if there aren't enough assets to cover the debts in the estate?
Yeah.
And I get asked by my clients all the time, am I responsible for my family's debt after they die? And the answer is no. You are not legally responsible to cover the assets of, let's say, your mother or your brother after they die. But Washington, it's a big one. Washington is a community property state. So in a community property state, spouses are responsible for each other's debt. But that doesn't mean that if, let's say, a spouse dies, all the debt is due right now. Just keep paying your bills as normal, and then things should be okay.
That's interesting because it is different from state to state.
It is different.
Okay. So that sounds like an exception to the debt dies with you. That's an exception to the rule. There are other exceptions to the rule as well.
Right. Well, there is one debt that does die with you. That's federal student loans in the name of the deceased person. That does go away. But other exceptions to the rule besides the community property situation, if someone has co-signed a loan with the deceased person, that co-signer could be liable for that debt.
And then you would in turn be responsible for something.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being with us. This is really, it's really important information, Bridget. Really glad to have you here. And would love to have you back on to talk about this even more.
I'd love to, thank you.
Thank you.